Michigan Out of Doors Online is brought to you in part by Tri-County Logging. Experienced in sustainable forestry practices, Tri-County Logging can help you manage your property by keeping your woods healthy and generate income. Serving southern and mid-Michigan for nearly 50 years, TriCountyLogging.com. Well, everybody, welcome to Michigan Out of Doors, and thank you so much for joining us this week. Hope you're getting to spend some good time with family these days. Now, because of the travel restrictions, we're not able to really travel the state as much as we would like and bring you stories from all over the state of Michigan. We all have been staying very close to home and doing quite a bit of turkey hunting over the last week or so. And on next week's show, we'll let you know kind of how our turkey season is unfolding as we chase those birds. But in this week's show, we're going to sit down with a Fredbear collector who's got some really cool stuff, some of Fred's first bows, some of his first arrows, broadheads, some video that Fred has shot over the years. So it's a really cool show this week. You won't want to miss it, really dedicated to a Michigan legend, Fredbear. I'm Jimmy Gretzinger. It's time for Michigan Out of Doors.
From the first spring rains to the soft summer breeze, dancing on the pine forest floor, the autumn colors catch your eyes. Here come the crystal winter skies. It's Michigan, Michigan out of doors.
What a beautiful day in the woods.
Someday our children all will see this is their finest legacy. Wonder and the love of Michigan as the wind comes whispering through the trees. The sweet smell of nature's in the air. From the Great Lakes to the quiet stream, shining like a sportsman's dream. It's a love of Michigan we all share.
Michigan Out of Doors is presented by Country Smokehouse, a sportsman's meat processor and Michigan destination since 1988, offers a variety of homemade smoked meats and Michigan-made products in-store and online. The Country Smokehouse features an outdoor barbecue and bar. Details at countrysmokehouse.com. By Angler Quest Pontoons. Angler Quest is a Michigan-based company building boats designed for comfort and fishing functionality. For more information, anglerquestpontoons.com. By Polar Craft Boats, offering riveted and welded boats for the outdoor enthusiast. Whether you're targeting fish or waterfowl, Polar Craft Boats have several models to choose from that keep you high and dry. For more information, polarcraft.com.
I started collecting bear archery stuff probably in the early 90s. I've always liked old stuff, but I got wind of a show that a traditional show that was pretty close to here in Heartland. So I thought I'm going to take a ride over there and see what that's all about, and went. And I saw guys making bows out of Osage staves with spoke shaves, and saw a booth. A guy had a couple of old bear recurves for sale, and I always liked Indians and the old ways. I thought, man, I was into bow hunting. I just started bow hunting with a compound, but I saw that recurve and thought, man, really be the way to go bow hunting. So I bought that recurve and started shooting it and got some old arrows, and that pretty much kind of got me interested in Fredbear and bear archery and started learning about them. And then anywhere I went, I started picking up bear archery stuff, whether it was online, and I didn't even have a computer at that time, so I was chasing numbers down, or you'd talk to people that, I had an uncle that I think he's got an old bow or something, and started picking stuff up. And that's kind of what got me into never thinking I was going to be a collector. But after a while, I had all this stuff and realized that I love sharing it with people. I didn't want to just have it. I enjoyed it, but I wanted other people to enjoy it too that had the same interests.
John has an incredible collection of items related to bear archery, including a few of them from when the company was just getting started and was still located in Detroit all the way back in the 1930s.
We're probably at the earliest part of bear archery when they started out in Detroit. This is some items that would have been made in Detroit. Leather goods, back quivers. They made these little perches. These purses are little pouches, little game pouches you could put your gear in. And this was Fredbear's first boyer in Detroit. Nels Grumley is a fantastic bow maker. These are some of Nels's bows. This is what's called a bush bow. Just a beautiful piece of work. This was a Bear product, so this was before it became Bear Archery. This was the earliest bows that they offered to the public. And that's Nels Grumley here, Fredbear, and a couple other guys. They were bow hunting up in St. Helen, Michigan area. And this is a picture of Fredbear and a group of archers during Michigan's first bow and arrow season in 1937 up near St. Helen. This is Fredbear in 1945 with his first moose that he ever shot. And in 1946, that's Fred with his first black bear he ever shot. And he's using a Grumley deer slayer in both pictures, and that's this bow basically, not this particular bow, but this model deer slayer bow with the bow quiver. And this bow quiver actually too, I meant to mention, Fredbear patented in 1946, I believe. This was a bow quiver that attached to the bow, as you can see in the pictures, and held 3 arrows. So that was something that Fred patented. And this was basically the arrow that Fred used to shoot those. It's a 4-blade Zwickey broadhead on a cedar arrow. This was the top of the line pretty much back then, and what Fred used to take both of those animals. And these are some of the first bows that were being made at Bear Archery after the move to Grayling. These are called transition era bows, still a deer slayer bow, but this has fiberglass backing on it now. This was a short period between when Nels Grumley left Bear Archery and they started mass producing, so probably around 1948. And then in 1950, they came out with the Kodiak Bow, which again, very similar to the old deer slayer bows with the static tip built up brush nocks on the end. This also has a layer of aluminum in it, and that aluminum was acquired from Fred's friend Glenn St. Charles. He got it, it was salvaged from old World War II bombers, and Glenn worked out a deal with the government to get some of this aluminum, and they started using it in the production of some of these bows, but unfortunately they didn't have a lot of luck with the aluminum laminate glue process with the wood, so they discontinued that. But this is an early 1950 era Kodiak static recurve bow. And then in 1954, Bear Archery got their patent, Canadian patent, for a full working recurve. And this is one of the first models of Bear's full working recurve, the Kodiak 2, or it's often referred to as the compass Kodiak because it came with a small compass embedded in the handle. So Fred kind of thought of everything there. If you're out in the woods, you don't have to worry about remembering your compass as long as you have your bow. Just a few examples of some of the early Bear Archery arrow boxes, the end plate on some of them just to show how they changed over the years, the Bear Archery shop at Detroit. And then you had these just plain cardboard and with their label, and then these are some that maybe some of the older guys like myself might remember having from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. But this is a real nice example of a dozen 1956 Bear arrows with the first Bear Razerhead on it that was offered for sale to the public in 1956. So just a real nice set of cedar arrows. And here we have some stuff from Grouse Haven. That was where Fred really loved to hunt and spend time in Michigan. Even after he had moved to Florida, he loved to come back and be with friends at Grouse Haven. So these are just some memorabilia from there. Some of the bow quivers, you can see the progression throughout the years. They started out with this 3-arrow scabbard quiver, was one of the earlier ones, and then eventually they went to a 4-arrow with a hood that covered the whole broadhead, so you didn't have to worry about getting cut. They kind of made that a little bit more safe, and then eventually went to, this was another model, the spring arm that mounted on the bow, and this was a 4-arrow model. And this inside the box there is an 8-arrow model. You could have 8 arrows if you needed. And then these are some of the Bear Razerheads. Those were very, very popular broadheads that they, at one time at least, they claimed killed more big game animals than any broadhead in the world. And this is actually one of the very earliest ones that was made in 1955. Fred had about 300 of these made and gave to his hunting friends to use, and he wanted to see how they liked them. And he got a lot of them back, but they're very rare head. But this is actually one of the earliest Bear Razerheads that eventually turned into these little green ones that we see here. And a lot of guys still, traditional archers, love to shoot the old Bear green Razerhead, so they were really a very popular head. these are some early examples of the takedown bow that Fred, in my opinion, that was Fred's crowning moment. He had always wanted a takedown bow, and of course this is their earliest version of takedown that they came up with in Detroit in Fredbear patented this in 1946, I believe. This was a takedown bow that came apart with a latch like that, but eventually Fred wanted something that really required no tools to take apart. These are a couple real early pieces that before they were finished, but just to show you kind of how these were made, and they were slotted, and these limb sockets were glued into place. So this is one that's a little bit more finished, and it's still, although these were mass produced, there was still a lot of this work, and the shaping was done by hand by craftsmen on sanders and equipment. So really a lot of know-how and feel went into making these bows, and this eventually became this, and this is a sea riser and the sockets that you can see in there. But these are really unique. These are some very early pre-production takedown bows that were made before they were offered to the public. These were made to be taken to one of the SHOT Shows to show the public what's new and upcoming at Bear Archery. So, and this is kind of how the public could have bought something. It had a nice little takedown case. The limbs came apart. This was the beautiful part about this that Fred loved, is it required no tools. These latches just popped open. You had 3 different length handles, as you can see here. We had the C handle, the B handle, the A handle, which was the shortest. The C was the largest. This is a B handle, but you also had 3 different length limbs, and these limbs could fit in any one of these risers, and that just clicked in there, and you would put the bottom limb in, and you had yourself a hunting bow at pretty much whatever length. And these limbs could be could come in several different weights. You could have lightweight limbs for target shooting, or for youngsters or the ladies, and you could put heavier weight limbs in for hunting. So it really was a fantastic idea and required no tools at all, and that was really what Fred wanted ultimately, and they're still being made today at Bear Archery, and it's still a very popular bow. All right, and these are just a few examples of some of the bows that came out of Bear Archery. This is a very unique one in the fact that it's a 123-pound recurve. I don't know who the bow was made for, but as far as I know, it's the heaviest Bear recurve that I know of in existence. It's just huge. Whoever shot that must have been quite an animal, or thought he was quite an animal. So that's a unique bow. Here's one takedown bow like we had shown earlier that Fred had signed to a gentleman that was one of his salesmen. So just a beautiful, beautiful bow. These are very collectible still today and still very shootable, but just a beautiful, beautiful bow. Ultimately, in 1975, Bear Archery cataloged and came out with their first compound bow. This was the Alaskan, and that was Bear's first compound bow, and Fred never really could shoot a compound bow because of his shooting style. He was a snap shooter. When he pulled that string back and hit anchor, he let the arrow fly, and the compound bow was just very awkward for Fred to shoot. So although he sold them and they were very popular, he could never really get comfortable shooting one. And this was the Tamerlane II, which was another one of the first compound bows that Bear Archery offered to the public in 1975. So you can see we've come a long way even with the compound bow of today compared to 1975. This is Fredbear's personal takedown bow that he used probably up until he died. And as you can see by the little sign up here, maybe Fred signed this bow to himself kind of as a joke. Fred was always signing things for people and signing bows and signing pictures, so this was kind of Fred's sense of humor where he signed his own bow to himself. But this was Fred's personal hunting bow, and you can see how he cut this arrow shelf down very low. Fred liked to have the arrow sit right on top of his hand, kind of how he started out shooting the old longbows back in the 20s where there was no arrow shelf. So Fred always liked to have the arrow as close to his hand as he could, so he had his bows, personal bows, shaved down so that arrow sat down low on his hand.
What is a bow hunter? Well, between a delightful old man conjuring up memories of long ago hunts and a boy's first bow, we find an unpredictable creature called a bow hunter. They come in assorted sizes, but they all have the same creed: to spend as much time as possible outdoors.
Well, Fred was from Pennsylvania originally, raised on a farm, and he actually he grew up hunting with his dad, hunted with rifles and shot a few deer, but he actually moved away from Pennsylvania when he was 20, just after his 21st birthday. He moved to Detroit, took a train to Detroit, and started working at, I believe it was Packard Motor Car Company, as a pattern maker. And then eventually he became plant manager at a Jansen tire manufacturer, not tire manufacturer, but a manufacturing company where they manufactured tire covers. If you think of the old Model Ts or Model As with the outside spare tire, they had tire covers that they would manufacture. But Fred also started making archery equipment in a corner of the building. He had learned about, he watched a movie with Art Young, hunting back, I think it was 1925. Fred had seen the film, and then shortly after he heard that Art Young was going to be in Detroit at a Rotary event. So Fred went and met Art Young, and they actually became friends and started making archery equipment in Fred's basement at his home. So that's really what lit the fire for Fredbear, and eventually he got out of the manufacturing business, his archery business. He started making archery equipment kind of off on the side, and it started taking off and got big enough that Fred split with his partner in the Bear Products company that he worked for and started making archery equipment full time. You know, I was just watching some old videos last night and happened across one where Frank Scott was talking about Fredbear after he had passed away. And I liked kind of some of what he had said, because there were others before Fred, Art Young, Saxton Pope, Will Compton, the Thompson brothers. But Fred, they hunted and they, I don't want to say promoted it, but how Frank put it, they kind of did it more for themselves. It wasn't about the actual sport of bow hunting, where Fred, he called him more the father of modern bow hunting. And I like that, because Fred did it, but he held 13 patents related to archery, and he really didn't protect any of them. If someone could use them, if it helped the sport, he was all for it. He didn't try to protect them and try to make money off them so much. He felt if it was better for the sport. But he patented the arm guard, the shooting glove, unidirectional glass on recurve bows, where the fiberglass could be put on the back and the face of the bow, which was something that was unheard of prior to that. But he really promoted the sport and the ethics of bow hunting. He was a very ethical hunter. But that's what I like about him, is that he didn't do it just for himself, but he did it for the future. And here's one of my displays that I put together, really special. This top part shows 4 of Fred's personal hunting arrows that he had signed and given to a gentleman that worked for him at the time, and that letter kind of describes Fred signing each one and giving them to him. And one of them, he joked, was broken off and more indicative of Fred's shooting, but really special arrows. But this bottom one is particularly special to me. It's one that Fredbear shot and killed a grizzly bear with in 1965 in British Columbia, and that is actually that film is actually one of the ones in the Bear DVD video library, and you can see Fred actually shooting that arrow and taking the grizzly.
not rush in there too hasty like, Bill. After all, we just think he's dead.
Well, I guess I don't think we'd have to worry.
It doesn't look like it. My God, isn't he a beauty?
Hey, that's all right, eh?
Isn't that nice?
These are just some personal items of Fredbear's besides the bow. This is one of his bolo ties that you often see pictures of Fred wearing that, and pretty much one other bolo tie, but that's one of Fred's bolo ties that he often wore. But the hat is Fredbear's Borsellino hat, one of Fredbear's Borsellino hats. He had several over the years, but he was always known as the man in the Borsellino hat. That was kind of Fredbear's trademark. When you saw pictures, even if it was just a shadow or a silhouette, you knew it was Fredbear because of that hat, and that was probably one of the last ones that he wore. And he gave that hat to Dick Latimer, who worked for Fred, was a very good friend of his. He gave that hat to Dick not too long before he passed away. He told Dick he gave it to him for safekeeping, knowing that he would probably never wear it again. This is Fredbear's personal stone knife and file set, one of them. He again had several, but this is Fred's with the Puma Hunter knife that he used. In just about every picture or video you see of Fred, you'll notice he's wearing one of those on his belt. So that was a tool that Fred used a lot. This is his belt buckle that he wore. That's made out of gold and silver that he has a few pictures of. One of Fredbear's Michigan archery back tags from 1972 that he bought when he still lived here. And then this is one of Fred's suitcases that he used, and it has the hang tag on it still from the Captain Cook Hotel in Anchorage, Alaska. And then Bob Munger's book, Trailing a Bear, there's a chapter in there where they talk about checking in at the Captain Cook Hotel. So I know that suitcase has been to Alaska with Fred, and so those are some of my favorite personal items of Fredbear's. Eventually, Bear Archery moved out of Grayling in the late 70s and moved their plant and their production and everything down to Florida. And the museum, the Bear Archery Museum, eventually went down there too. But Fred always liked to come back to Michigan in the fall, and he had a place that he loved to hunt, and he'd been hunting there since the 50s. It was called Grouse Haven up by Rose City, Lupton area. And Fred really enjoyed coming back to Michigan. He would spend some time fly fishing on the Asaba, which he loved to do, but he really enjoyed spending time back up in Michigan and primarily at Grouse Haven. And a lot of the time I've heard that he just enjoyed more of the time just spent there with the guys and watching them enjoy their time. And I don't think he really hunted as much as he had prior to that, but he did enjoy being in the environment and the element and being around all the friends and watching the other guys enjoy themselves. So that was, yeah, probably well into the 80s, just before he died. Yeah, he just enjoyed the outdoors, and he really loved Michigan. This was where his heart was.
A bow hunter is an instinctive creature. You know where he is in the spring and summer, but he's hard to find in the fall. When he's overcome by that primitive urge to roam free in the foothills and swamps, with the hope of just one clear shot, to chase game with the ghosts of other hunters from other times. That's all he really asks.
It's all right. Yeah, let's go hunting, baby. Say, Fred, you go up that ridge, and I'll go down in the swamp.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for watching Michigan Out of Doors this week. Stay tuned over the next couple of weeks. We're going to have some good turkey hunting on next week's show, and after that, hopefully some good spring fishing as well. Get out there and enjoy your time in the out of doors, and if we don't see you in the woods or on the water, hopefully we'll see you right back here next week on your PBS station.
Michigan Out of Doors is presented by.
Do you dream of somewhere bigger than your backyard? You can get there with Greenstone. Whether you want to hunt, fish, hike, or just watch the sunset, we're ready to help you own your place in the great outdoors. To learn more, visit greenstonefcs.com.
Closed captioning provided by Marvo Mineral, makers of Lucky Buck, deer management products including minerals to supplement deer diets year-round to improve health and antler growth.
When I wander far away, a dream stays with me night and day. It's the road that leads to my home state, I am a Michigan man. Changing seasons paint the scene like rainbow trout in a hidden stream. The white-tailed deer in the tall pine trees. I am a Michigan man. I am a Michigan man. Ask where I'm from and I'll show you my hands. Lord above, I love this land. I am a Michigan man. From the Keweenaw down to St. Joe, Kalamazoo, East to Monroe, to St. Marie and back again. I am a Michigan man. I am a Michigan man. Ask where I'm from and I'll show you my hands. Lord above, I love